price is not today's price.
We're going to go with the Patriots here. They're probably the worst team in the NFL. So I don't know that we need to spend too much time on this team, but they have a cool quarterback, which we both love, and that's Drake May.
Yeah, I'm a big Drake May fan. He's my most rostered rookie, at least that, relevant rookie in the first couple rounds, I would say.
We've got a slide here with Drake May, where he's going at ADP-wise, and then some trades from Fantasy Calc. So from an ADP standpoint, Drake May is QB 18. He's going in the mid-fifth, which is just a steal by all accounts and at that point in the draft. He's going a full round behind Jared Goff, over a round behind Tua, which that doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like I would much rather have Drake May over both of those guys. Once you get into like the Dak, Purdy, Lawrence range, okay, I can see the case for those guys ahead of him.
Yeah.
But to be 2.5 rounds, 2.5 rounds behind Jaden, almost 3 rounds behind Jaden Daniels, that doesn't make any sense. So I feel like Drake May's a massive buy, but I don't see any of my leagues. I'm in 14 leagues, and I don't see any of my leagues where I'm able to just go out and buy him for a reasonable price of like these guys in the 5th round. I mean, the wide receivers going ahead of him are DK, DJ Moore, and Zay Flowers. I would easily throw any of those guys up for him.
We've talked about it before in some of our other pods, especially when we talked about the Lions on the NFC North pod. But like these startup ADP values just don't reflect what we were seeing in rookie drafts. Like again, can you imagine someone trading like the 107 plus something else for Jared Goff in the middle of your rookie drafts? Like that,
right.
Those trades just did not happen. So yeah, I think at this point, now that we're like at the end of July, almost all of the rookie drafts have been completed. I know all 22 of mine have been completed for a little while now. I think whoever likes Drake May the most in your league probably has him, or at least made an attempt to get him, because like you said, we agree that this is excellent value for him. The idea that
they were on the clock, like say they were on the clock at 5 or 6, they probably fielded an offer or two for Drake May when he slipped, or they took him at like 3 or 4, like you were doing in some drafts. So yeah, I agree that the person that has Drake May probably has him. And so you probably got the owner is probably got a stranglehold on him. We've got some trades here up on the screen. Do any of these jump out to you as just a smash for Drake May? One of them I think is really interesting. I want to point to is Kyler and a second for Drake May and a first. So Kyler's going mid-second startup value, QB 11. Which side would you take there?
So it would probably depend on the first, because like that could end up being where the gap in picks is only like 4 spots, and then I would almost take the sure thing in Kyler. But if we just assume that's like a mid-first and mid-second, then I'm taking Drake May. The one that stood out to me is there's a couple of them, but like the Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman for Drake May and Roman Wilson. Like I'm not really down on Ladd and Keon Coleman. I think they're fine at their current cost, but I would do that every day for Drake May, and I get low dart throw and Roman Wilson, who I like. Drake May for Michael Pittman. Yeah, give me Drake May. Bryce Young in a 2nd round pick. I just don't think Bryce Young can play in this league. I would definitely trade Bryce in a second for Drake May. So, yeah, I like the May side on a lot of these.
Yeah, I think we're starting to get to the point now where it's kind of clear, like you said at the top, that Jacoby Brissett's probably going to be the starter week 1. And when that happens, you're going to have some people that are a little bit bummed out and starting to question. So like the Michael Pittman trade, that could actually be there. I don't think any of the leagues that I'm, but like there's a DK and Stafford for May and Corum. I kind of like that. I mean, I think that's pretty reasonable to go out and try to at least attempt. Maybe you don't get Corum, but DK and Stafford. Let's talk that one, Because DK is going in the same round as Drake May. Would you toss on Stafford to get Drake May? From a value standpoint, it looks bad, but I think we're kind of in agreement that Drake May should be going like late third instead of late fifth.
Yeah, I think I would do that. I think I would take the Drake May side. I definitely would take the May side if I get Corum too. But if it's just a 2-for-1, I think I would do that. My only hesitation is like I don't love trading Stafford away right now, just because I think like he's my favorite of the cheap veteran guys, and I think he's still going to be good for another few years. But yeah, I would take Drake May side though. Still, DK is what he is. We've talked about him a few times. The other one that because we were talking on the last pod about Christian McCaffrey and how you were saying that you would like to consider moving him on a lot of different rosters just because he's peak value, like 28 years old, etc. Drake May, Trey Benson, and a 27 first is kind of a nice return, I think, depending on, what you're looking to do if you don't really need running back production this year.
Yeah, especially if you're in a rebuild. That kind of, if you're trading away CMC there, it kind of screams that you're retooling, especially if you're taking on Trey Benson, which is not going to really contend or help you contend this year. So yeah, if I'm retooling, if I'm rebuilding, that's one I would definitely be into. I don't think that CMC should be going in the early second of startups, and I think he should be close to around the late third, even. I mean, at least in the third. And so I think Drake May should be in the late third. I don't think that they're too far off. I get to get Benson at first as well. So yeah, I think that Drake May is a value on the trades that we see. I just question how often and how readily available he is in your leagues, but I think we should all at least be trying and checking it out, especially as we get closer to the start of the season.
Yeah, agreed. So if we go back real quick to the rest of the Patriots, we got like Ramondre Stevenson at RB20, Jalen Polk at wide receiver 51, Javon Baker, wide receiver 68. We got Pop Douglas, favorite of this show, wide receiver 73. Any of these values stand out to you, or are you just not that interested in like the rest of the team really?
From a running back standpoint, I mean, RB20 for Ramondre Stevenson, I think is fairly solid. He just signed a contract, so he's going to be on this team for at least a couple of years, which is nice to know. And so the guys that he's going around at RB20, right behind him are Kamara, Zamir White, Javonte Williams. Like all three of those guys, I'm not positive that they'll be not only will they not be on their teams next year potentially, but they may not be like viable starters next year for your fantasy team. Then after that, you've got like David Montgomery, which I think is probably just a stable, low ceiling type play. And then at RB 17, 18, and 19, you've got Swift, Benson, and Mixon. I think that Stevenson is in the same realm of like Mixon, but he's got a little bit more security long term. So I think that Stevenson's relatively valued properly. I'm not out dying to trade for running backs, but amongst the running back group, I think that's a pretty fair purchase price for him.
Yeah, I actually have no Ramondre shares in any of my leagues, and he's the guy I've been kicking around in offers like the last few days, just trying to get a gauge of where he's at, because I agree. I do like his value. I like that he has a little bit of security. And he did say a few days ago, there was like a clip of him saying that, I forgot the specific scheme, but something about like a wide zone scheme that they're running this year is what he ran in college, and he's really comfortable with it. And he says he thinks it plays to his strengths as a player. So that's the type of stuff that you like to hear, even though it could end up being meaningless.
Hey, we don't have it on the screen here, but an off-season loss for them was Ezekiel Elliott. I think Zeke took a decent chunk of the goal line touches, And so with Gibson, I don't think he's going to be taking those goal line touches. Now, who knows how many times the Patriots actually get inside the goal line, into the goal line. But when they do, they're probably going to be looking to run the ball with Stevenson. I think Brissett's pretty underrated as a player. And if May reaches the potential, like whoever's out there, I think that they're going to do a pretty decent job. Their Patriots O-line kind of sucks, but I think that Stevenson will get a nice chunk of work inside the 5. So I think that he has a chance to have a very usable RB2 season at a moderate cost.
Yeah, and because I'm high on May, and also I think Jacoby Brissett, for as long as he starts, I think he's a fine, competent starter that can get the ball to his receivers. I kind of like the value of all these receivers. I think the Patriots being dog shit is pretty baked into all their prices. And Jalen Polk especially, man. Jalen Polk has been turning heads at camp. Like he's been all over the place. He's been working with the ones almost from the start of camp. And I think he's a really good value at wide receiver 51. He's an 11th round startup pick. He's definitely a guy I would look to target before the season starts. Like once he, week 1, he could go 5 catches, 70 yards, and all of a sudden he's like his price doubles and he's worth like 2 seconds instead of 1. So
yeah,
he's a guy that I would try to get sooner than later.
Yeah, if you can't get Drake May in your league, then maybe you can go get a guy like Jalen Polk. If you're trying to like retool a little bit and you've got maybe someone like Calvin Ridley, Marquise Brown, they're going ahead of him in ADP. Sometimes it's difficult to move off those guys. I don't necessarily mind trading one of those guys for a Jalen Polk. The one guy that I'm kind of a little bit more tempered on versus the market is Javon Baker. I think that he's getting a bunch of hype. I think he's probably got a little bit of a larger hill to climb. I also think that his style of play, it's going to be kind of a high A dot, down the field type guy. And it will churn out some like sick highlights. But I think from a fantasy perspective, he's probably not in like the future, let's get 7 or 8 targets per game. He's not like a target hog. I think he's probably more in line with like your down the field type guy, maybe like a JMO at his peak type thing, where obviously we haven't seen maybe JMO's peak, but a guy that goes down the field looking for deep balls like a Gabe Davis maybe, and you're going to have some ups and downs. But I think Javon Baker is probably getting a lot of hype that may be a little bit unwarranted. So if I had him, he's probably a guy that I'd probably add into a trade to sweeten a deal to get it over the top.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Pop complements him pretty well in terms of like Pop Douglas is, I think, going to get a pretty decent target share. But, he might have a questionable ceiling in terms of like, I'm not sure if he's ever going to be a wide receiver 1, but I could see him having a lot of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type seasons.
Yeah, he's the type of guy.
Overall, the wide receiver group makes sense to me. I think I see the way that these 3 receivers would work together on the field.